Hello, my name is Anthony Wall, YouTuber, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. There's also Romulus Science. This is the theory of hyper-relativity by Anthony Wall. To prove the theory of hyper-relativity, I'm going to use, and we all need to use, hyper-science. Just like there is a greater than and more finite than how and why, sine, cosine, and tangent work, relative to how correlation works. If the prefix hyper is put before any word / value, it gives it a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously additional identity of identity of extension, identity of means to discern. It's complete identities. Conjunction, as and how, where it is definable as complete, where and how it is a semi-nature relationship to whatever is, like, for example, the same way the cells of our bodies, those individual identities, the identities they make up, like the organs, they are a semi-nature relationship to our complete identity. Whatever is positive to them is positive to the complete identity they are a semi-nature relation to simultaneously, so they stay complete. For example, the stream of blood and the elements of the 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature, as those with water and as water, and as those with the mixture of gases, our breath, the air we breathe, and those 3 identities of sequence nature, the cell, nucleus, cell body, and the cell wall. Note where and how those other 2 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature being valued. This is about where and how we are increasing volume as value, even if what it has already been, positive and or negative, and then further positive and or negative. See, there is like a binary delusion syndrome. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. So there are people offensively preventing free speech, and have been offensively preventing free speech because of their roles within as all locations effectively maintained, originally and still, self-valued, criminally foreign influence per method that causes negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that invested the human fact treatment nature, countries A through Z, only capable of blaming on other things, others, and or on selves, the real causes of those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Not because they don't have the means to discern them, because they already invested themselves to logic that is reliant and was reliant on such. For example, there are trials in the news that they show you what's filmed, and there are trials where they don't show what's filmed, and they are still both in collusion every day. All cases originally and still were criminally foreign influenced. There were arrays of fake sides with prosecutions and with defendants still in collusion. Also with all exception natures tied to the branches of government. Also with a whole bunch of other countries. And also further through which kept them originally still, blaming what it caused originally on other things, others, and ourselves. And then how it maintained that by making that self-valued. Some people, for example, people self-value criminally foreign influence readings of the Constitution's amendments of the nature of the law, as the nature of precedents and of statutes. Offensively preventing and having prevented freedom of speech outside of interbranch locations that have been naive evidence reception, racketeering worse than war crimes method /S roles, needs and natures, as criminally legalized criminal insidious natures, tactically, effectively abused at each age of fact-cheating nature, and including and especially where and how all alternatives to that were our exceptions and exception nature in demonstration of the same thing. In other words, so people want and need to be connected where they're going to be truth tellers. See, but we have liars at locations because they are victim predators. They've had the various branches of government. We've had the various branches of government in other nations involved with our interactions with ourselves. And they've been attaching everyone to fake words, fake locations. Increasingly, they've been using the quote, right to lie, unquote, to hide overt / insidious criminally foreign influence uses of all identity, the ground locations, areas, and states since founding, pounding drums. They offensively pretend not to realize this. Everybody in reaction to it, because no one has had the law spoken to them by anyone who is not already having been exploiting exceptions. That, for example, where and how. And there's a whole bunch of ways exceptions, the exception nature are exploited. Because, for example, too, nature has a distinct use for exceptions in exception nature where they are not exceptions but appear only to be, where they simultaneously demonstrate its simultaneous nature as a value, a relevant to hyper-relativity, which is actually its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that is scientifically discernible, where and how the invisible but still discernible has conjunction as ourselves do to a semi-nature, as a semi-nature / completed nature to the identity of hyper-simultaneous, to its identity of relationship to itself, and to the value of that, which are only increasing, apart with additional means manifesting demonstration of how it is self-generating more and more forever nature, only the extent of it being and having been debatable. However, other is being and having been debated offensively, and people are getting away with that by pretending passions and emotions multi-front as arrays per roles with uses with logic, for example, as collusion. And when people tell lies, especially as agencies and as courts, all levels of them, and or it's also how they're victim differentially criminally foreign influenced. So you entertain that too. They are backed into criminal insidiousness natures of conviction / opinions that can't defend themselves and ourselves from what kept and keeps them, just like the overt criminal enterprises. They're on television too. They're online too. Recorded how kept keeping this and kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, find active progressive lies, identity thefts and frauds roles. Know how slavery is an identity theft fraud method. Anyone who denies it is going to demonstrate roles with slavery, forms of slavery still scientifically observable. So these are people that offensively need to pretend others are lying to courts because they have been setting up fake exceptions. There are kids I never saw on my campus in my life. And if I never had a conversation like that. They try to accept exceptions. They abused. They had kids that shared Heather Hansen and lied to her, and then with her and her brothers, furthering their illusions. Mike Kerr, I saw him one time. That was an exception they made, and that was time to boyfriend she had at the same time, and I never saw her around my neighbor. The only exceptions was when I was in a middle school class. A middle school, summer school class. And her other boyfriend, Joe DeMore, was in that class. And her. They put, and there's a Mr. Neville who's involved with foreign and domestic drugs and medicines crimes through other natures of crimes, where they're involved also with falsified police reports and federal crimes with judges and prosecutors and people that are Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center tied. So they also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, pretending I had conversations with Dan King. And they have people involved with interbranch and foreign and programs with them, criminally foreign influence through time years ago that relevant now. That to a whole bunch of things relative to the Washington, D.C. World Trade Center. And one of the things that the identity thefts and frauds against everyone. See, everyone is offensively preventing a quality of fact, cheap nature demonstrated, needed to discern such. Also because of how they have interbranch families involved with courts, everyone speaking through other. They have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents recorded themselves offensively outside of courts and inside of cases, consciously fabricating evidence from criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, for example, where they give the benefit of the doubt at the last second, though, too late, usually, to police forms and to the courts. And offensively, they've been doing this to maintain, themselves needing to use all that comes before them to hide what they already used those locations for, including courts, various natures of courts, on off the state judicial branch offices, Fienza family, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, and with others who also confirmed, demonstrated, recorded. People on Two-Route Highway attach me to fake locations, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves. They made confessions of others, so I used their names with me. And they also had the girls who were lied to by a whole bunch of different boyfriends they had at the same time, because of how the men and women are involved with abuses of kids, where how they're pretending they have integrity intercities, intercampuses. These are also the police forms with the campuses, and not involved with criminally foreign influence uses of each of the sciences, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously each of the departments. So they have computer departments, and they have the English department, and they have acting departments, involved also with people with a whole bunch of people with Wethersfield Pizza, with Steven Stocco and Maria Vizino. Involved also with people I saw Maria Vizino on the Wethersfield campus in my life. No, she's involved with Mark Violet, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also with houses on my street. They're like a O'Brien family and others are involved with the spots next to Trinity College and next to Central Connecticut State University with the FBI and with other police forms. They don't know the extent of it. They just know that they were involved with military police, with federal crimes with kids, identity thefts and frauds instances, pretending to know me with girls that went to my grammar school who married like a Justin Govinskis, little fake, pretending behind my back. He knows me. Pretending me to fake locations with courts and military police families. Involved with a whole bunch of different kinds of child abuses too. And federal crimes with evidences, with drugs and medicines crimes. Also per the rules with identity thefts and frauds. All along that route, all along Wells Road, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and at the corner of Wells and Wocket, and of Wells and Southstein, there are some military police families that through time have been slandering me, which is tied to the rules with identity theft / frauds. Per definition of it, that is greater than and more finite than that how it is defined by the law. But it is, while it is being that value. But we have to appreciate it that way without separating subjects and sequence, because the courts using illusions that their roles with identity thefts and frauds, it means to get away with it because they've had collusion at locations. So these people from Wethersfield are also involved with New Britain and West Hartford criminally through time. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. And so these are also people preventing people from being calm and defending themselves with speech and from raising their voice to counter guns crimes roles with the police and the gangs in collusion, and not legitimately, because they and too with the acting coaches, and too tied to how where and how they have people that don't even need to tell you the police. They demonstrate their roles criminally foreign influence with police and overt criminal enterprises. So Interbranch has been pretending they have been legitimately investigating things, but they've been using their roles with all that's been brought before them to hide live progressions per their roles with databases crimes since they were kids. They're also connected, homeschooled, private schooled, and public school kids who know themselves on off campuses. The off campuses locations and the on-off campuses look in private database relationship locations, their names, interesting. Then when they go to their neighbors, everyone's neighbors gets brought in with a sense and sensibilities. Because these people that were involved with predicate acts at my school is connected. That's what's actually recorded / hyper-recorded. This is against everyone. See, to stop people from seeing what's actually going on and the actual solutions and means, and what actually is science. The breaching method knew that abridged sciences, as victims, would have to respond to the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers, including and differentially, especially, criminally legalized criminal insidiousness natures as the branches of government, and as they were left inherited because our founders had to hide their roles, daring to put up that the Constitution's values unabridged should be defended. Where and how? Even the countries that were involved and are involved with the complete possession of our slavery, including the richest people. We have complete possession of their fact-cheating nature. They can't defend themselves and afford mandated law followed at any location. And they need to pretend others simultaneously. So they are saying simultaneously fake things. So they are increasingly getting away with it for how they have kids from the youngest ages attached to fake natures of relationships to themselves, fake relationships to themselves, fake locations. See, these are locations uses that are fact-cheating nature oriented for a method that perfected this since before our founding parents were even born. So it is increasingly valued to discern how the breaching method sickly distinctly hurt each difference of the human body's positions as individual bodies know. So each group inherits value to that body as an identity, as means to discern that which is hyper invisible but still discernible. And so nature is the suffix that we can put behind any word, and we can discern further its hyper-identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. And where the invisible but still discernible is only discernible one way /s. For example, the predicate's identity and its /identity of value progression and or its value nature. It is invisible but still discernible, just like the subject's identity of value / value progression, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously from while as the predicate, as the subject, as the sentence, where they are then that's shared body of consciousness. Note how both the Democrats and the Republicans and news outlets are only connected to them and to their Facebook pages, no, their YouTube pages. They're both obfuscating consciousness by obfuscating what wokeness is about. And by their roles with preventing mandated law and by making allegations outside of court and lies and stealing identities, stealing people to fake words outside of courts. They don't know the extent of that. And it increasingly happens. They increasingly self-value being told to lie. In other words, hear no evil, see no evil. Pretend these emotions. This is what our readers like. This is what our viewers like. Same thing. So they have all media involved offensively preventing mandated law. There's also two Mendez pleas, intercities. I never had a class with Eric Mendez in my life. I only saw him one time, real brief instance, in 9th grade. He was involved with, and is involved increasingly, with other people who made confessions and demonstrations of roles with him, with identity thefts and frauds, wire crimes. And he called me after that. He's roles with a Fred Grouset and with the extended family members and the daughter of my town's police chief, a Chief Cintron, and a police chief years ago, involved with the Cololo House. That Weathersfield police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed over the phone over recent months and online, and with other police like Officer Jerry Miller, involved with their wire crimes with people with the Weathersfield town officers through time. And had that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also. They had my name used with them by courts and by police forums, involved with kids that were themselves involved with overt criminal enterprises, physical delusions, child abusers, elderly abusers, people involved with predicate acts, identity thefts and frauds timed on and off campuses, fake instances put into databases, methods of doing this, tricks of doing this. Mayor Gold's daughter is involved with this. And they say Lee Gold. I never saw him in my life. Never saw Debbie Gold around any of the campuses I went to except for a Highcrest. And that was where she pretended she was in conversation. She screamed and called me all these names. I don't even know her. She did that, pretended passions and emotions, pretend I knew her years ago, which is relevant because there is more tied to a principal child abuser Proven's campus where there are other principals who have their kids. In other words, I never had a conversation with Principal Murphy's daughter in my life, and I was they made it. They took a picture or whatever, and they had a whole bunch of people pretending they know me to her, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also did that in my high school with as roles with people in my middle school that weren't in my class. Never saw them around campus. They were involved in background with federal crimes with databases. This is spreading lies. No, worse than hearsay. But for example, courts that aren't supposed to be respecting hearsay, that have been making things up, they've been roles with the people doing it at locations. They have all the programs with the kids, Cub Scouts, Tiger Cubs. They have a Chris Walters. I don't know his brother's names. I believe his sister's name is Legine. They're involved with the intelligence community and on off the Wethersfield post offices and locations next to it, involved with identity thefts and frauds, and with public schools and private schools, plural, but also that one near the Southstein Middle School and the Southstein Middle School, involved with the policings of the schools, involved with the courts associated with them, and with doctors associated with the kids, and with the ages of their families, attaching kids to fake ties to themselves. No one's watching the databases. These are also people on off Trinity College and CCSU that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, had my name used with them criminally by the police forms associated with them. There's also the ones on my street involved with predicate acts, whole bunch of names. See, this is how with the police forms have been lying to them, and then, quoting them, asking themselves questions about what they made up and through other people, and then pretending their involvements. And so then they're going to agree to their involvements. They're going to say, "Oh yeah, it's true," but they're not going to. No one's going to prevent them of quality of fact cheaping nature to tell about the sequence shifts or to demonstrate the natures of federal crimes that the investigators were furthering that are seemingly unrelated, but there are uses of it. For example, the distinct natures of child abuses and identity thefts and frauds. So there's a Subby Bajerio who also has various men and women involved with the courts and with prisons and people on off the state, prison officers on off the state, on off all sides of the Wethersfield Community Center and spots next to it, like Goodwin Park and like that elderly home there. They're involved with federal crimes of a whole bunch of juxtaposed natures with the FBI and with state police families, as people, and with courts, as people that are also involved with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones originally still. And it is recorded how this has not been, it's very simple. And where it is complex, it's only extensive. See, they're pretending it's simple as collusion with roles, with innocence they put away. For example, the two, they're using and having been using, putting innocent people in jail before they're proven innocent, and using those jails and having used those jails to torture the people per methods that are fact treatment nature oriented, time treatment oriented, exploitations of exception nature oriented. See how you got people in the news, oh, is it yes or no? Yes or no? They're preventing the exception nature from being demonstrated. Nature has again, there are proofs that force, space, nature transfer is demonstrated. In other words, we could be a system other by putting slavery in the laws, criminally allowing that legalized, as victim predators, as awe, shock and awe. Try to adapt to it, you're still sick. Science has not spoken for New York City. See, you have to think of yourself as a parent to speak for the nature of the law. You have to think about a whole bunch of kids that hurt each other. Our own hurt our own. See, modern countries are an invisible but still discernible identity of fake integrity. And blaming the causes of it on other things, others, and or on selves. And needing to hide from means for that to be demonstrated. And that is where and how existent or not, it is more practical and probable and scientifically sane to blame a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise for syntactically, where we have to counter the real causes of predicate acts, of methods of them. American history as the histories of other countries. It is about a predicate acts delivery system method that was entrenched in our country, intercolonies, therefore interstates. Before they were states of victim predators as qualities of syntax nature that had been tactically removed for the integrity of fact-keeping nature the ancients had revealed before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. There are all kinds of proofs of this. And when people try to debate it, there are all kinds of, right there are proof. There is recorded how they self-value abridged sciences. The January 6th Commission is offensively victim predators pretending taking defenses of A or B treatments, of names treatments, of self-valued sequence shifts, wire crimes, acts and methods roles, other natures of predicate acts roles with child offenders of juxtaposed natures, uses of their kids, use of each that had the interbranch with it, as the interbranch that are recorded since they were kids, criminally foreign influenced, and per two, how they have the policing of the schools. So they have all kinds of, how they have them trained at the campuses where people that are not policed too are going to learn sciences. They're keeping everyone criminally foreign influenced, differentially criminally foreign influenced, differentially but increasingly. So just like they're trying to put fake simultaneous mimicked with computers for all the things they have to do, and all the things they increasingly can't do, while they're increasingly putting impositions on us. No. So we have offensively people using words like the algorithm or algorithms, increasingly leaving out this is the algorithm, the hyper-correlation nature. Consciousness is its own shared sense. Increasingly now through identities of that were our filters, increasingly self-valued. And that is increasingly in collusion with the identity of sophistication as that predicate acts delivery system method, as that hyper-criminal enterprise, which is relevant because it is recorded manifest where and how myself and others need to make short words. And we are offensively increasingly being prevented demonstration of how where and people are saying things are either true or false, where they're doing and having done that to exploit what they were actually recorded doing and having done. They know they have no legitimate faith and care many ways for the people that educate and control the syntax nature of the victims in the January 7th, leaving out the dead ones. So that's murder. That's where you can't see. That's where they have self-value rules with those murders, and people countering them still, because they're needing to increasingly hide from and hurt correlation/correlation nature, simultaneously inherent, active, progressive means. They can't defend their positive and negative treatment, their opinions/convictions/delusions /criminally foreign influence premises treatments, actually recorded natures, and afford proper counters to criminal insidious natures like wrongdoing, because they are that. That was never. George Washington could tell no lies. There are proofs, in other words, for example, that's the only thing we really know about him correctly. Because known at the time were self-valued rules with criminally foreign influence database relationships that were designed specifically to maintain complete possession over the syntax nature, therefore the functions at all locations, and that was sustained. So when someone tries to speak about that, they think everyone only hears, oh, hurt was sustained. Hurt as a feeder. No, in other words, people think that people aren't letting anyone use science. They aren't letting anyone use truths as that nature of short words that brings revelations. How slavery is more than identity theft / fraud. How that is not addressed. Where and how slavery is brought up. Where and how that is exploited. All that is recorded. Just requires a quality of fact treatment nature that is not offensively the theft of others' identities. So I don't know this, right? Rick Cianfaglione, after he graduated, he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with Tim O'Brien and Andrew O'Brien, who were little kids and now adults, and with their parents, Dennis O'Brien, I don't know his mother's name, and a whole bunch of people tied to them with the intelligence community, and on CCSU and on off Trinity College and along Park Street and stuff like that, involved with federal crimes, with judges and prosecutors, all kinds of cases, all kinds of uses of depositions for identity thefts and frauds, even depositions used. They have all along Route 3 involved with identity thefts and frauds. They have ties to the locations next to Trinity College and CCSU, also involved with that. A whole bunch of people tied to the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 in Rocky Hill, involved with my town's police chief and with his extended family and his daughter, and with a whole bunch of other countries as people criminally foreign influenced that are also involved on and off campuses with connected identity thefts and frauds instances, and rules with using of the shared policing of shopping centers, spots at corners of the streets. Now, don't forget there's an identity theft / fraud method overtly / insidiously against everyone. The reason it stays overt is because how all the roles with that overtly / insidious are only manifest with arrays of opinions that are only allowed to speak, or they steal your voice. In other words, they steal you to more and more fake words, more and more courts that have no integrity, that are exploiting exception nature that they set up to exploit. Look how the businesses, the private, like slavery. In other words, that's not that's how you're going to make money. That's how you're going to compete, and you're going to blame it on competition. It's about criminal foreign influences. Now you have to counter something you have to counter a criminal enterprise or another country. Unless we all agree to counter a hyper-criminal enterprise. And we show what can't, and why and how it can't, because what's actually recorded, the value of treatments of cases. So there are all kinds of recorded ways that courts recorded consciously and police forms know already. Military knows already. Other countries know already. They have criminally foreign uses of the family members interbred and all privatized to them and all privatized to that. All locations were brought up when they went before them. No, in other words. So they have the different car dealerships. They're family members. Therefore, everyone working around them. Involved with identity theft and fraud. He said, she said, where locations are used to maintain sensibilities and collusion at courts, where they maintained originally and still arrays of opinions blaming on other things, others, and or selves with the breaching method caused. Which is, okay, this is what they wanted to pretend. So, in other words, they measured that we were supposed to defend how George Washington, how James Madison were supposed to stand for the Constitution unabridged. But if they tried to do it directly, they tried to speak words that weren't dictated. I mean, in other words, forced, entertain that can't entertain themselves, and counter what was unnatural to all locations, which nature was going to keep demonstrating. What is a system with slavery? What is nature going to demonstrate? It's going to demonstrate negative value, nature, progression, acts of nature. Nature's like criminal insidiousness, nature. So we're going to learn the law better than the law. How could we do that? Because we could use as evidence what is actually recorded, their physical delusions. How they've been hiding that. How they've been pretending not to realize. Simultaneously, their criminally foreign influence fact treatments, premises treatments. Simultaneously, how in collusion with overt criminal enterprises and private ones and their family members and back where everyone lives. So, and how they use their kids years later. Timed. And how they may use this method of confessions and demonstration, everyone, and then loaded questions and statements from people. Because in other words, there's a Spada family and a Cololo family that are involved with distinct natures of courts. With the Della Fera family. And with other boyfriends of the Spada family at the same time as with the Della Fera family. And their roles with shopping centers in the corner of Town Line Drive and South Steen Highway, and people with the policing of the stores in their shopping centers, like one there. And there's a Chinese food restaurant, and there are other restaurants in the shopping center there. That there's a Mike Pandolf and others from Central Connecticut State University, which is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, controlled roles with federal crimes, with lawyers, and with courts and police forms, and people on and off Central Connecticut State University, and on and off 2 speech class teachers I had are also involved with people with Washington, D.C., and with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants before they were proven for various natures of federal criminal crimes. And then again, when they were his co-defendants in a 2006 district court case in Connecticut, leading up to that case and since, are also people leading up to the World Trade Center attack contest and since, as people who are criminally foreign influence. Where and how relevant too is like the World Trade Center is involved with insurance companies and with investigations, private, that are in collusion with the interbranch investigations that have been putting fake things at locations and fake things as methods in cases and as roles with all private tied to them, also kept needing to hide the same sequence yet final act of progressive lies, lie progressions, identity thefts, and frauds roles. So, like, for example, they have state police and they have people associated with the FBI and CIA and their family members involved on off Central Connecticut State University in New Britain with predicate acts that were also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with predicate acts off children campuses, intercities, where the police forms have collusion with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not legitimately, and they're pretending it's legitimately. Also, why and how someone brought up, he asked me on Facebook what I knew about Plainville and Southington. There was also, in other words, Pandolph family is also involved with identity thefts and frauds of people from Plainville and Southington. And I don't know them. It's not personal. There's a teacher, a professor I had who has his kid involved with this criminally, and they have a whole bunch of different boxing gyms involved with this, as people involved with wire crimes on my street, with the courts and the police forms involved with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and the private ones simultaneously. These are also some medical families, foreign and domestic, who've been attaching me, little kids, to fake conversations, fake ties to themselves, and fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, which is a big thing too, because these kids are conscious. They're being demonstrated. They're putting kids next to them, and so they can lie about the natures of relationships to the kids next to them. They've been confessing, demonstrating, recording roles, pretending to be for the kids, while as the ones demonstrating how they're differentially criminally foreign influenced, delusions wrought. And they hide this too, for how there are recorded uses of where there are intercultural predators with the KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, and black theme, and as the ones roles with with Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College connected names, and other campuses connected names to Connecticut tribes involved with identity thefts and frauds, and Wethersfield interbranch offices involved interstates with spreading lies and rumors, where and how that is one of the things that they use to keep all identities of voices of the Republic criminally foreign influenced, or their words attached to fake words, or those were exceptions they set up to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures relevant to where and how nature keeps demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. So nature increasingly has this value progression system tied to where and how we are. Syntax nature properly, increasingly prevented free speech offensively. Prevented means to report this outside of courts, or the media locations steal us to fake words. WFSB recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There are rules also with names at the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 through time, involved also with the Oliveri family and others on off the state judicial branch offices who are on off the street next to them, and on off Two Rod Highway, involved with connected identity thefts and frauds on off campuses connected. These are people that also have roles with people that just walk through by others and they try to take a picture and pretend they know them, like a Paul Abted and some kids at the corner at different times in life. Different times when I was in school, at the corner of all sides of the high school. I think it's J Street. I don't know if that's the one parallel to it. But it was a street with Anthony Agman's, one of the ones with his brothers, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with various natures of drugs and medicines crimes, with doctors from Hartford Hospital, with kids, and various other natures of child abuses with them. And there's a Dr. Graham who confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed roles with a principal sex offender, a principal child offender, and other sex offenders and medical offenders and people that work with the courts and the prison systems and with forensics locations and legal body dumping spots also involved with the same house/S and recorded through time involved with wire crimes, falsified police reports with police forms and judges and their family members, as ones also involved with overt criminal enterprises they brought up and brought up as in their roles with federal crimes with them, with evidences. So we need to have them. They've been switching names interbranch. They've been lying to a female black judge I know who is greater than them, and with a black officer involved with some KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, even if that's their undercover and why they have the so many ways. The acting teachers involved with on-off Church Street, the corner of Church Street and Main Street, all along there to Wells Road, all along to CCSU through Newington into New Britain there, all sides of Central Connecticut State University. They were involved. There was a I don't know. There's a Jim Socha and a Jennifer Socha, who's also involved with courts that are involved with identity thefts and frauds, and with people on Fox Connecticut News with various, and as roles were confirmed with a Spada family, and with various natures of police forms that were involved with her boyfriends, one of them, and then her brother's boyfriend. There was like 3 sisters, 4 at least, and a brother. And her mother works with the Weathersfield schools. And now they're going to hate me now, and they're going to use that as evidence. That's how their sense and sensibilities are being used for identity thefts, frauds against a stranger. As the people also brought up by the police that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They brought the name Cololo up. Also online, Ray Cololo was there was more than one people with that name. And that's the cousins of the Phil Cololo, further involved with the principal sex offender per this what's his name? Bob Chase. Bob Chase, and he didn't show me the police report. And then Weathersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, a whole bunch of people tied to them had through time. Two Mendez police involved with the police of the schools with drugs and medicines, crimes with the kids, wire crimes, identity thefts and frauds, roles putting fake things, fake natures of relationships to the people into databases and spoken and tied to those wire crimes. So because they're criminally using time, they're pretending people are lying to them. When they're offensively recorded lying to the kids, roles with kids, with confessions, demonstrations of their roles with the families interbranch that have been inter-campuses connected before they even get there. Or even if they don't get there. They have people from a whole bunch of different colleges and universities that were already used. Like, for example, where they have the sense and sensibilities of the media making treatments of Facebook's name or YouTube's name, they're forcing them to collusion with them. They have the advertising companies that including the FBI advertising on TMZ. They have those little kids that they have involved with undercover investigators used to screen criminally foreign influence uses of locations, areas, and states, and their roles with hyper-identity thefts / frauds. You have little boys and girls and men and women interbranch, and as the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, sickly distinctly, they can't defend themselves, their logic, and us at the same time. And they are shown needs to hide that. And there are shown means for how others will be able to discern it before they can. Relevant to where and how they have until, again, blamed on other things, others, and ourselves. Predicate acts that should have been predicate acts roles. Like slavery. What is slavery about? Predicate acts roles. What else is it about? Criminally foreign influence uses of sciences, of fake sciences, pretended other. What else is it about? Physical delusions. What else is it about? uses of sense and sensibilities of people, to use Jane Austen's phrase. What else is it about? Hyper-identity thefts and frauds, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously from where and how it is physical and metaphysical identity theft frauds. What else is it about? It's about the real cause of negative value nature, progressions, acts, natures. What else is it about? It's about having them blamed on other things, others, or ourselves. What else is it about? After they did that, it's about more and more pretending they don't realize they did that. What else is it about? Needed to hide that. Needed to hide from and value hurt and being hurt and having been hurt. Correlation. Having been made more and more incapable of defending the quality of fact, treatment, nature of the sciences, reveal themselves are, when led by the identity of hyper-simultaneous nature, that which uses exceptions and exception nature in a way that can't be invented, for example, so it can't be mimicked. But one way, and it's through where and how rolls with it where our self-value. So we have to understand and discern that which is actually recorded as the complete possession of the self-valued theaters as modern nations A through Z, through time, recorded self-valued criminally foreign influenced database relationships, criminally foreign influenced passions and emotions towards the value of the sciences, where and how those were criminally foreign influenced, insidious, positive and negative treatments, identity treatments simultaneously, where and how they are victim predators only capable of defending themselves, their groups, and humanity's voice as such. Fake. So the January 6th Commission is also being used to hide their roles with elections crime method /X that keeps both parties, any candidates they're going to have, they're going to be criminally foreign influenced roles with what effectively kept and keeps juxtaposed natures of not just organized crimes, natures of distinct organized crime, of child abuses, of bonded uses of them, where and how we are syntax nature too. They're separating subjects, have been separating subjects to hide what they've been recorded using all fact, treatment, all time instances, simultaneously too fast, too slow to get around forever nature. When they're backed up, it's because they had collusion with what was going on at locations beforehand. And the people running the gyms are recorded how kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite active progressive lies with federal criminals and with the worst patients and criminals and innocent people. That I'm not making any opinions regarding what Congress says about Paul and courts say about Paul Manafort and about Steve Bannon. But courts are recorded involved with the FBI directors, plural. Not just with the former director of the FBI alone and his defendant capacities. Now they're involved together, plural. Involved with Westbrook, with a number of people from Central Connecticut State University involved with the intelligence community. Again, all along that route through time, involved with identity thefts and frauds instances, offensively recorded trying to set up exceptions in exception nature, people I don't know, and people I know only because they were trying to set up those exceptions for that. And as people who, with that, colluded with people on all sides of the campuses I went to, involved with identity thefts and frauds instances, also in the form of falsified police reports rolls. So, in other words, all kinds of foreign and domestic medical corruption, physical delusions manifest. These are people speaking, they're going to speak for, now their nuclear weapons have been pointed against each other. We've had these problems. No one is speaking for integrity. No one is speaking for sciences. No one really believes that, but this is what constituencies want. No one believes that. Follow mandated law. Respond here. Let's get the names.